Welcome. Now that Harry Callahan dropped some knowledge on you. Celebrating the 85th anniversary upcoming of the 357 Magnum, as well as the 35th anniversary of the Ruger GP100, I've been reviewing this Talo Special Edition 3-inch 7-shot 357 Magnum Ruger GP100, item number 1782. This comes with these beautiful grips. They fit my hand perfectly. I believe they're Ultimate grips. I have named this John DeLorean, if you have seen my unboxing video. And the 3-inch ballistics and 7-shot capability means that this is a very viable CCW option, in my opinion. And besides, it's fun, it's cool. It could be your barbecue gun or your occasional open carry gun. And shooting a revolver is going to make you a better shooter altogether because you get used to that double action trigger pull without destabilizing the sight, so you pull through. That'll make you a better shooter overall. And particularly a Magnum cartridge, it's already making me better at my recoil management skills that already have become quite good in the last 6 months, as I went from a 9mm shooter back to 45 and very, very, very lightweight guns, 21 and 20, just under 23 ounce pistols for 45. But the pressure, the quick recoil, the quick snap of a 357 Magnum is quite different. Even the second time shooting it, which you'll see footage of, much better able to handle not only the 125s, but the 158s I had problems with the first time. Very hot loads. Shooting mostly Fiocchi ammo, and also in the first outing, which I do have some recoil footage of, shooting the Federal. Very hot stuff, the original loadings. Guys, the 3-inch barrel gives you really good ideal ballistics. Number one, as a revolver, it is perfect balance. I'll roll in footage of my first times ever attempting a sideways cowboy step out with the revolver and point shooting. It worked out really, really well. The 3-inch ballistics, it's besides the ballistics, it's easier to carry a 3-inch than a 4.2-inch barrel. If you look at the weights, it's usually quite a bit lighter. And I like the unfluted cylinder that this comes with. So this is kind of a rare package to get, not only 7-shot instead of the 2.5-inch barrel, but the more ideal carry, in my opinion, and ballistics, much better from a 3-inch barrel. 3-inch to 2-inch is a huge difference. 2.5 to 3 inches also a difference. Rugers also shoot faster, almost always, than Smith & Wesson barrels, especially the older ones. But I believe so even on the modern ones. I do believe that Ruger holds up better to 125 grain or lighter ammo. So this could be the gun that is a viable CCW choice. Now, in my opinion, no matter what pistol you carry, I have always been taught from my teachers, Detroit cops and inner city cops, Chicago, and studying NYPD cops, Jim Cirillo, etc., to always carry a backup. So even if it's a small 380 or a small 38 in your offside front pocket, something like that, or what I've been finding to help balance out the weight, carrying a 45 on my opposite hip, as you'll see my modern cowboy type setup, what I usually dress like, not quite as sharp as Harry Callahan, but it's working out quite well for me. And we will roll in times. You'll see when I started out shooting, the first time was almost all single action. I just went to double action at the very end and only got it on camera once. But this last time it was all, I took a couple shots after, originally, then I took a couple shots at the 125 at 10 yards to see if it was still sighted in. It was still sighted in. Originally, I started out, my draws are a bit slow just to get used to drawing from a new holster with 38 plus P. And I'm used to 3 o'clock no cant. The DeSantis Sunbreak's the first holster I got for this. So is behind the hip, and with a cant, I'm still getting used to it. But even since the range footage you saw, the holster kind of broke in from the range, and my draws are getting much faster, and I put it just a little bit closer to the hip. So anyway, I started out. You can see most of my hits were pretty good. A few of my hits were being pulled a little bit right once I switched to the 357 Fiocchi ammo, which is almost just as hot as like the old school Federal or Remington stuff that had great street cred, the best street cred ever, actually. And listening to Mossad Ayoub the other day, he thinks FBI went to requiring too much penetration. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, unless it's a very, on later end of the spectrum, very high velocity. 125 grain semi-jacketed hollow point was always known as the lightning bolt, the man stopper, the magic bullet. I do believe there's reasons for that that not quite everyone understands, but if most pistol shots are psychological, I think the very loud bang and the flash of a 357 Magnum is definitely that. Oh my God, he's shooting hand cannon at him. You get the fibs reaction. That's my theory. Number two, physically, at least if you hit bladder, brain, or bone, ribs, or chest piece, I think that you get a large shrapnel effect, and the skin has the most nerves, and that lets them know, I've been shot, the fibs factor again. Besides, there is massive tissue damage in the first few inches. No matter what kind of footage you've seen, what kind of testing there is, or shooting deer or hogs, etc., show that there is way more than just 9mm. Now, having said that, 9BPLE, which is less grain, instead of 125, it's 115, plus P+, had very, very, very good street cred as well. And then you look to similar, once 357 SIG was made to be like 357 Magnum, every department that's ever gone to it, other than perhaps beating up some of the firearms, as far as ballistically speaking and real law enforcement shootings, they've all been very, very happy with the 357 SIG. So 125 grain Magnum, 9BPLE simulating it, 357 SIG simulating it, it goes with it. We also know old school 158 grain penetrates and expands even more, penetrates even more. I think that's good. I think right now I'm keeping the last 2 or 3 rounds 158 grain for more penetration if it's needed. If the first 4 or 5 shots don't get me out of the situation, or it happens to be an extremely large, determined attacker that maybe I'm not getting deep enough to the goodies, in a rare case, though I have seen some 350-pound drug dealers around at places that I used to bounce at in the area that I am. So, yeah. And of course, there's more modern ammo, from very light recoiling, Golden Saber, to probably the best round overall with the most expansion is the 125 grain Barnes TAC XPD, I believe it is. The Barnes TAC XPD, not the DPX. I think it's the TAC XPD and 357 Magnum. That's probably the best overall. And then if you want 158 grains or like 148, 140 grain, Barnes, in the rare case 7 shots don't handle your social situation, there's that. So guys, hopefully you're watching some of my footage where I'm shooting and then testing it on 2 targets and doing more realistic stuff. Mozambiques, 2 targets, 3 targets, trying the cowboy step out, getting off the center line, and actually was working quite well. And eventually on 3 targets again, and I'm starting to rock and roll and get this down in just my second outing. I've never been a revolver shooter, and even then, this thing's great. A Ruger GP100 is incredibly strong in my opinion. So it will hold up really, really, really well. I believe it is stronger than a Smith, not just because there is more metal. I think that has to do with it, no matter cast or forged or whatever. More is more. But even if you don't agree with that, There's the 3 lockup points. If I didn't cover this already, here and here are typical, but this has a lockup point at the front of the crane that makes it extremely strong and solid lockup. Very, very strong. Especially with 125 grain usage. Magnums were built on 158. Once you drop down to the 125s, I believe, you know, the Ruger beefed it up from the Speed 6 Security 6 to the GP100. Smith & Wesson did the same thing, like 1966, beefed it up to the 686 L-frame from K-frames. So, however, I do think the GP100 is stronger for 3 other reasons people don't mention. Number 1 is that lock, the 3rd locking point at the front of the crane, like I talked about. That's most important. Number 2 is that the teeth are taller and or thicker. I believe taller and possibly a bit thicker. Not sure about that, but I definitely know they're taller and they don't grind down as much. That means that if you're dry firing a lot, which Ruger as a company says is fine to do, you know, you don't need snap caps. You just don't want to do a ton super fast every single day. But it's already cleaned up the trigger quite a bit in just a few weeks. So it says you can go ahead and do that. This thing will hold up because of that. And third, I do believe the forcing cone angle is a little bit less, and therefore it doesn't get worn down as much and as much lead flying out eventually when things start to get a little bit out of timing that you do in competitors. So the Ruger GP100 will hold up over time. Everyone likes a Glock because it's reliable and holds up over time. The GP100 is that in the revolver world. If you see the footage here, I think you'll see that this 7 shots makes a viable option as long as you carry speed loaders or speed strips with you. And better yet, in my opinion, you also have a New York reload. I'm Dan the Wolfman. Please thumbs up, please share, please subscribe. Makes me feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. I hope you've enjoyed this Talo Special Edition Ruger GP100 video. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you on the flip side.